Hey guys, right here, welcome to the channel. So about a month ago, I installed this inverter to run my entire house electrical panel, and it's been doing that just fine. I have had a lot of good feedback and comments from you guys to help me make this system better and safer. I even had my neighbor that's a 30-year master electrician come over and have a look at this system. He gave me some good advice too of things I'm going to change. So I'm going to show you the things I've changed and things that I'm going to change before have the inspector come over and take a look at this. So if you want to have some fun, come along. Yeah, so everything's pretty much been running fine with this unit. There's not really much of an update there, but I am going to give an update in 6 weeks as far as cost savings go. And I'm going to have about a month of my air conditioner running with all the other appliances. So we'll see if it can handle that, and we'll see how much cost savings we have there in 6 weeks. So if you remember in my previous video, I had 2 batteries sitting on the ground like this, and I mentioned that my battery cable was a little bit undersized. So in the app, I had to turn down the amount of current it could pull from the battery. And that made it so this couldn't quite run at 100% from the battery, but I instead decided to install this cabinet here. And I really like this cabinet so far. I got this cabinet and I got 1 more battery in here. So I got 3 batteries total. I did a review on this cabinet last week, and also these batteries, how they're performing. Now we have 2 aught wire here. This is that I got from Signature Solar. This is plenty thick to run the inverter up here. So this is the state I had things in when I invited my electrician friend over to come look at things. So let's jump right into it and see what he told me I need to do to prepare for the inspector that's going to come. Because this system is so small, it wouldn't be that expensive to hire an electrician to install this for you and save you the headache and ensure that you're following your local laws and regulations. Okay, so here's the basic setup that we have installed. So on my load's coming over here and coming into this 60 amp double pole breaker, and it's powering my entire house here. When my faceplate's on, I have an interlock kit that's protecting this so it won't turn on, so I won't have any power backfeeding into the grid. Now, in order to connect grid, I do have grid power to connect to this if I have a long storm or if my batteries go dead. And I'm hooking into the grid power using these Polaris connectors. They come through here and come up into the grid connection right here. Now this is number 6 wire. So right now I have a breaker right here that will protect against any overcurrent. So the electrician initially gave me the idea of using Polaris connectors to tap into the grid. And so he saw the Polaris connectors and he said, you know, you probably should update these to be a thicker gauge. So I have a 100 amp breaker near my electrical panel, and he said, keep everything simple for the inspector. Just go ahead and put a 2 gauge wire on there, and then the inspector will look upstream and see that that number 2 wire is protected. And that makes sense to me because we really want to make everything as simple for the inspector as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and update these to 2 gauge wire. This is number 2 wire. And I've confirmed that number 2 wire does fit perfectly in this slot. If you want to get any thicker than this, it probably was not going to work. So these are the breakers for the inverter. So this is where I hit load, grid, and I can hook a generator up into this. So this is the NB163. So the 63, I was mistaken. That is the model. So this 63 model can support up to 63 amps, but it looks like these are rated for 50 amps. I was mistaken on that in my last video. Because it's a C50, that means it's not super sensitive to 50 amps, so you can go over this, but I'm not sure how long you can before it trips. And I obviously have a battery breaker, so if too much current flows through the battery, this will trip. So another thing I didn't mention in my last video was the ground neutral bond. So in the United States, the ground neutral bond, which needs to be made, is usually made at the first panel as it comes into your house. So I have a ground neutral bond near my electrical meter, and this unit does not make an additional ground neutral bond. It honors that ground neutral bond. Now, if you are going to use this in an off-grid scenario, it doesn't automatically make a bond for you. There's a setting number 26, where you have to enable that. Okay, so the other thing the electrician mentioned, and also you guys mentioned this as well, is really I've got a lot of wires going on here, so just clean these up before he comes. A couple things that were mentioned was to add a grommet here because of the sharp edge of the metal rubbing against the wire. Another thing also that was suggested was add a little clamp here. So I've got this little clamp I could add. Now this will provide some strain relief, so if this gets tugged on, it's not gonna pull out of the connector. So this setup is temporary right now, so I really wanna see how it's gonna perform next month in June when the air conditioning comes out, because I might need to change this a lot, because I think I might need to add another unit on here. Now, if I do need to add another unit, I'm gonna have a lot more wires going on down here. My electrical supplier up the road says they have the square wire trough or a wire run box I can put down here. It comes in a lot of different lengths. Put it right here. I can have one large wire run, and I can have conduit going from here to here. And then I can have my wire run from my electrical panel just go in, and everything's going to be in conduit. I'm going to take care of this right away. I definitely don't like this is hanging right here. So I'm gonna put a metal box right here and run conduit, maybe this type of conduit down into the metal box, and then run some THHN up through my wall into my attic, over to my yard, and I got a permit where I can dig a trench out over to where I'm gonna have my solar panels, and that's gonna take care of this. So running conduit, I think I'm going to have this cabinet flip 90 degrees, and so I can run this conductor through the side of the cabinet. So it'll be facing like this, it'll be facing this way. And then I'll drill a hole and have the conduit maybe come out here and into the main wire run. And then for my communication cable, I wouldn't put it in the same conduit as this wire, but I'd maybe just tack it to the wall or something like that. Yeah, but if I only need one unit, I think this is the system I'm gonna go with a conduit with a wire trough. But if I need two of them, I can go with this setup, and I can add an extra one pretty easily. So, but I really like this system. It's really simple. If I were to add a critical sub panel right here as my load, the problem with that is if this system goes out, all my critical loads suddenly don't have power. But I could put a manual transfer switch in here, but to make sure they have power, but then it gets a lot more complicated. I like having the ability to power my entire house. If the power goes out, I can turn off everything except my critical loads. And I can switch around what load is critical and what load's not by just flipping the breakers. I really like having the ability to power my whole house. In addition, if the inverter goes bad, I can easily switch back over to grid using my interlock kit switch. But let me know what you guys think. Any other suggestions are very welcome. So if you are interested in purchasing any of these items, I will include a link in the description, as well as a discount code for the inverter, as well as the batteries. But thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you next time.